Little Fox.
The Little Mermaid. Chapter 4. The Little Mermaid Surfaces. At last, it was the Little Mermaid's 15th birthday. "Today will be your first day in the upper world," announced her grandmother.
"I'm so excited,"
squealed the Little Mermaid.
"I've been waiting so long for this day."
The wise mermaid placed a wreath of white lilies in the Little Mermaid's hair. Then she hooked 4 oysters on her tail, a sign of royalty.
"Ouch, that hurts,"
cried the Little Mermaid. "A small sacrifice for becoming a 15-year-old princess," said her grandmother. The Little Mermaid had to agree. The oysters looked lovely. But she was anxious to start her adventure.
"Please hurry, Grandmother,"
she begged. "Go ahead, dear," her grandmother said. "But don't stay too long. Remember, your place is here, under the sea." Impatiently, the Little Mermaid hugged her grandmother goodbye and swam away. When the Little Mermaid got to the surface, the sun was just setting. She saw the sky turn from blue to pink. As night fell, the sky turned deep purple and sparkled with stars. Soon the moon poured light on the sea.
"It's so beautiful in the upper world,"
exclaimed the Little Mermaid. In the distance, the mermaid saw a ship with 3 tall masts. She swam closer and saw that the ship was standing still in the water. Music was playing, and she saw bright colored lights. Sailors moved about on the ship's top deck. They walked on 2 legs.
"Humans?"
she wondered.
"What a strange sight."
Excited, she swam right up to the side of the ship and peeked through a window. Inside, more humans were singing and dancing. All of them were dressed in fine clothes.
"It looks like a party,"
she thought. The mermaid studied each human carefully until her eyes fell upon a young man.
"Oh, how handsome,"
she thought. Her eyes followed him as everyone went up on deck.
"We remember when you were born, dear Prince, 16 years ago,"
said a woman with a blue feather in her hair.
"He's a prince,"
exclaimed the Little Mermaid. Another guest said,
"With your kind heart, you'll be a great king someday."
"May every year be as happy as this one,"
added a man, holding up his glass.
Happy birthday, Prince!
The crowd cheered.
"Everyone loves him.
Thought the Little Mermaid.
He must be wonderful."
Rockets shot into the air and exploded into 1,000 tiny lights. The water reflected the fireworks, and the entire ocean glowed.
"Oh my!"
The mermaid had never seen such a sight. Frightened, she quickly dived underwater. But looking up through the water, she soon lost her fear.
"So many sparkling flowers in the sky!"
she exclaimed. The prince hugged his guests, shook their hands, and said,
"Thank you for a lovely celebration."
The Little Mermaid swam up to the surface and watched. The prince was the most beautiful of all the humans. He was as beautiful as the statue in her garden. But soon the music stopped, and the colored lights were put away.
"Thanks for all your help,"
said the prince to his crew.
"It was a great party."
Then the prince and his guests went below the deck to sleep. But the Little Mermaid could not swim away from the ship or the handsome prince. For her, It was love at first sight. The Little Mermaid. Chapter 5. The Storm. Suddenly, there was a loud rumble from deep in the clouds. Large raindrops fell from the sky. Waves swelled up from the sea like towering black mountains.
Oh, what fun!
Thought the Little Mermaid.
A storm is coming.
In the Sea Kingdom, she and her sisters were safe from storms. They loved to play in the churning water. But the sailors were frightened. They yanked the ropes that controlled the sails. The prince's ship turned to and fro in every direction. Strong winds rocked the ship from side to side. The angry sea would not let them sail back to land.
All hands on deck!
Shouted one sailor.
The ship is out of control!
Shouted another. Unafraid, the Little Mermaid waited in the distance. Through the darkness, she watched the ship and thought,
Lucky me. Now the prince can't sail away. Maybe I can get another look at him before morning.
The Little Mermaid didn't understand that the ship was in danger. The storm grew stronger, and huge waves crashed on the deck. The wind beat against the sails and tore them to pieces. Then, without warning, the mainmast snapped and fell into the water. The boat began to tip to one side, and seawater flooded the deck.
Get out the lifeboats!
Cried a sailor.
We must save the passengers!
But it was already too late. A bolt of lightning struck the ship, and a strong gust of wind blew out all the lights. Suddenly, everything was pitch black. Then another lightning bolt struck and set the ship on fire. Burning pieces of the ship were scattered everywhere. By the blazing light, the Little Mermaid could see that the humans were fighting for their lives.
Oh no,
She cried.
the poor humans.
Some of them were thrown into the sea. Others jumped from the flaming decks.
Help! Help!
They screamed as they fell into the water. The Little Mermaid saw the woman who wore the blue feather holding onto a table leg. A man was trying to swim to shore. "Save me!" cried one guest.
I don't want to die.
Cried another. All struggled to keep their heads above the waves. The Little Mermaid searched desperately for the prince. Finally, she saw him. He was trying to keep afloat, but he was tired. He began to slip below the surface of the water.
He's going to visit the Sea Kingdom,
Said the Little Mermaid happily. But then she remembered that humans could not live beneath the sea. Unlike the sea folk, they could not breathe in the water.
My prince will die. Oh, I must save him.
She cried. The Little Mermaid dived through the waves and swam closer to the destroyed ship. She made her way through the burning wood falling from the ship. At last, she reached the prince just as he dropped beneath the raging sea. He looked like a leaf falling from a tree. The Little Mermaid grabbed him and pulled his head above the water.
Hang on, dear prince. I've got you.
She whispered in his ear. Then she let the waves take them away from the fire. The Little Mermaid. Chapter 6. Daybreak. By daybreak, The storm had stopped. The little mermaid swam to a beach, pulling the prince through the water. Then she stretched the prince out on the white sand.
You're safe now,
She told him. But he was not awake and could not hear her. She looked around. She was in a little cove with a small garden just beyond the beach. The garden had white benches surrounded by fragrant lemon and orange trees. Just behind the garden, she saw a large brick building.
It has such a tall tower and such big wooden doors,
cried the little mermaid. She held the prince's head and ran her fingers through his wet hair.
Please wake up, my prince,
said the little mermaid. But his eyes remained closed.
As you sleep, the sun will warm you,
she lovingly told the prince. The little mermaid stared at his handsome face and then kissed his eyelids.
He looks even more handsome than the statue in my garden,
she thought.
But my prince is real.
Suddenly, the little mermaid heard a sound she'd never heard before. The tower was making a loud clang. The little mermaid looked up.
Could that sound be church bells?
Out of the large doors came a group of young girls. They were dressed in simple white dresses, and their hair was pulled back with white ribbons.
Who are they, and what are they doing here?
Wondered the curious mermaid. The girls gathered around the benches, laughing and talking.
The humans must not see me,
whispered the little mermaid, suddenly afraid.
Please stay safe, my prince.
The mermaid left the beach and swam out to a rock. She covered herself with sea foam so no one would see her. Then she watched the beach. Look! Shouted one girl to her friends. Although she was dressed like the others, she was more beautiful. She had big green eyes and long dark lashes. She ran to the beach and stared at the young man, who still had not moved.
Come here, I found someone.
The girl touched his face to make sure he was real. And at that moment, he woke up and smiled at her.
Oh, maiden, what have you found?
Called one giggling girl. Then they all ran down to the beach and gathered around the prince. When the prince saw all the pretty young girls around him, he smiled an even bigger smile. But his eyes lingered on the girl who had found him, the one they had called Maiden.
Thank you for saving me,
he said.
He should be thanking me,
thought the little mermaid.
I saved his life, and he doesn't even know it.
Come inside to get warm, said Maiden. She led him toward the church. The others followed and then disappeared through the big doors.
They're taking my prince away from me,
the little mermaid said from behind her rock. If she could have cried, her tears would have fallen one by one into the sea. But mermaids are unable to cry, so no tears mingled with the crashing waves.
I must go home to the Sea Kingdom,
said the little mermaid.
But I'll come back for you, my prince.
And she dived underwater.